Well, welcome to the MAM Journals, and today I'm going to be doing a journal on my Suzuki GSX-S1000F, and what I'm going to be covering today is the story of why I bought this bike, my experiences over the 1,000 miles so far that I've done on it, and what I like about it, what I don't like about it, and what my plans are for the future. So, how did I come to buy this bike? Well, it's a bit of an embarrassing story, really, in so much as I have a Z900 RS, and I was running it in, and it was a very tight engine. It took a long time to actually get bedded in to go, and about halfway through the process, I thought, I don't think this Kawasaki is going to be fast enough for what I want. So, being an impatient sort of guy, I thought, well, maybe I better try something else and see if I can work my way through this. So I'm very lucky in that I'm here in Oxfordshire and we're incredibly well served by a very good Suzuki dealer who I've known for many years. And in fairness, I'm a fan of Suzuki's. One of my first off-road bikes was a Suzuki P175. I've got in the garage, I've got a Suzuki GSX-S1000F. And I've also got a Hayabusa Gen 3. So I do like Suzuki's, and I sort of popped down to see them and had a conversation with them there and ended up buying one of these because they are incredible value for money. I think the first thing I should point out that, you know, you get a bike like this, I paid £9,700. And for the sort of performance that you get out of a bike like this, I think that's remarkably good value and a lot of brake horsepower for your money. They're 100 and... I get a bit frustrated with manufacturers. They talk in various numbers and performance. It's 150 PS. Now, if you turn that back into a number that we might relate to, that's actually 148 brake horsepower. Now, that is plenty for most people on most roads. And it's certainly got a very good engine on it. This is an engine that's known as the K5 engine from an engine of many years ago. And it does produce power in it, and it's easy to ride. So talking a bit more about the bike, other things I liked about the bike, I like the seat height. This is 810 millimeters, which in old money is just under 32 inches. I'm 5'8" with a 29 inside leg, so I feel very comfortable on the bike, and I do like an upright bike now. I've got sports bikes, but I do actually like riding something that goes, but I'm not bent over it. So that suited me very well. I particularly like this sparkle black metallic effect with it got on it. Very simplistic sort of approach up front in terms of the controls and the instrumentation. Other things that I've sort of reflected on as I've got it, I've got to say I don't particularly like OE fitted Dunlops. I actually had OE Dunlops on the Kawasaki, and I changed those pretty quickly. I haven't changed these, but I will because they don't particularly get warm, and even on a hot summer's day they quickly cool. So I do find that perhaps a bit softer rubber would suit the bike a bit better. In terms of handling, these bikes are built to a budget, and the reason why you can buy such a lot of bike for less than £10,000, and they're even less than that second hand, of course, you can get a nice condition one of these for £6,500. Is the suspension. They haven't exactly pushed the boat out. You've got good adjustment on the front. You've got what you'd expect. You've got preload, you've got rebound, and on the bottom of the fork, right-hand fork, you have got compression. So you've actually got quite a bit of adjustment on the front. Although I haven't faffed about with it, I don't particularly ride aggressively, and certainly I know other people ride on the road much faster than I do. When occasionally I go on a track day, I'll get the bike over and do the usual sort of things. But on the road, I always ride with a bit in hand. But even I found that I could get the front end to chatter. So it tells me that the suspension, although it's got a lot of adjustment on it, I haven't spent any time doing it. It would probably need to be adjusting to get that to the right level of handling it that you like. But I think the probably biggest weakness on this bike, as indeed, funnily enough, was on the Kawasaki, is the rear shock absorber. It might have a rebound on there, but if there is, I haven't found it. You've got preload adjustment, but it it's a lot of power to handle for a fairly basic unit. And what I found with the bike was not that it handled particularly badly when I'm just riding around sort of bends or whatever. It was fine with that. But because it's such a great engine, you can actually overtake more than one car at once, and sometimes you just sort of pop out and you can take 3 or 4 at a go and then nip back into the gap. And I found after accelerating hard and then closing the throttle quite quickly to get back into the gap, the back would sort of tie itself in a knot, which is, in fairness, most motorcyclists are pretty used to that, because in the old days all bikes did it, but it was a bit of a surprise that I was riding a brand new bike and it did something which is really a characteristic of a bike 15 years ago. And I think if this was a long-term bike for me and I wanted to get more out of the performance that this bike clearly has, then I would be investing in upgrading the suspension to make it to be able to cope with the performance levels. In terms of groups and forums, because what I tend to do when I buy a bike, I immediately go on and join membership of the various groups to understand what issues people are having and how they feel about them, because I'm interested in that and I like talking about bikes, which is why I make videos. And certainly a lot of the initial feedback is the throttle's pretty snatch here, and I do agree, people get the ECUs flashed, so effectively a remapping on the ECU to sort of try and tame that down a bit. I find it a bit frustrating but not unrideable, but it is a characteristic of the bike, and I've lent this bike to a couple of people while I've been testing their bikes, and their sort of feedback as well was the clutch is quite fierce as well. But it's certainly not an unrideable bike in any shape or form, but it's not as smooth and as refined as some of the other bikes that I'm lucky enough to own. In terms of weight, and the bike weighs 474 pounds, and that's curb weight. I do get frustrated with manufacturers because they talk about dry weight, wet weight and curb weight, and for those that you don't know, I'll just briefly explain what that is. Dry weight, not that anybody would ever ride it with it because it wouldn't be possible, is with no fluids in it, so it's got no coolant, it's got no hydraulic, it's got no oil, and it's got no battery. Now, quite why anybody finds it useful to tell anybody what dry weight is remains a mystery to me, but there might be reasons which I'm just not aware of. Wet weight is obviously the direct opposite of that. It's fully fueled and it's got all the fluids in it, filled with the oil, and it's got a battery in, which proves useful. And that's the other alternative measure. And then they use something called curb weight, and that means it's sort of got enough fluids in it. So you don't really know whether it's got half a tank full or it's got a full tank full. And they say the curb weight of this is the number that I just quoted, that 474 pounds. So it's funny enough, it's about the same as my Kawasaki, and it doesn't feel heavy to ride, and as I say, it's a comfortable bike to ride. They describe this as a sports tourer. Now, I'm not sure it is, if I'm honest. It's an upright sports bike really, because it's got a sports bike engine in it, and it's fairly aggressive to ride, which is good fun. I mean, it's a traditional classic Suzuki. It howls like a banshee and goes like a rocket. But if anybody wants to spend any time in that back seat, they're a braver man than I gungered in, because it's a pretty fierce bike. It lifts its wheels pretty quickly, and I don't think you want to be going very far two up with a lot of luggage. Interestingly, I know that they are just launching a GT version, which is more of a touring bike, and I'm looking forward to trying that, because that sort of leads me into sort of what I'm going to do with the bike. My Kawasaki is now run in, and I actually, if I'm honest, I prefer the Kawasaki in terms of overall ride to this in its current format. And I'm probably looking, one of the next bikes I'm really looking for is a sort of slightly lower seat but comfortable two-up bike, which my wife and I can go and do a few miles and a few days away on. So I might actually have a look at the Suzuki GT and see whether I'd actually like to swap this and get the K5 engine effectively, that sort of horsepower, which is good fun, but in something a bit more usable for me. But if it sounds like I don't like this bike, then I'm sorry if I'm giving that impression, because I do. it's a very capable bike, and as I say, I do think they're great value for money. But it's probably, a friend of mine described a bike the other day as a jab. And I said, what do you mean by jab? And he said, just another bike. And in a way, this is just another bike, and it's using quite old technology. It hasn't got some of the specification in modern models. So I think, you know, it's a great shame for me that some of the bikes that Suzuki are currently producing feel a bit behind the pace, really, because they've got such a fantastic heritage of producing fabulous bikes over the years. And as I say, I am a Suzuki supporter. But I'll look forward to trying the new one. If I was looking to buy a bike that was quick to ride with a great engine, easy, upright, and nothing too precious, you've got to say a used one of these has got to be a good buy, because you won't go far wrong. It's pretty. It starts on the button, all the things you'd expect it to do, and you get a big bang for your buck. So hopefully you've enjoyed this short review, and you found it helpful. And if you did, then perhaps you'd be kind enough to press like or make any comments that you wish to make in the boxes below. But in the meanwhile, ride safe, stay well.